Hello, I'm under
Yeah.
strain. I'm
Whoop,
happy.
whoop.
I'm a good person. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
supporting my friend. Okay, so, all right. So, welcome to the next episode, the latest episode of the Mesmerise podcast. We have Adam Loveridge with a D because you
With
get
D.
people like, I'm Stephen with a PH or Stephen with an F. So
Ah,
you're an Adam with a D, but
just one D, only one.
just one D. Actually, no, that's wrong because you're not the guitarist of Killswitch Engage. I'll shut up. I'll stop trying to be funny. But no, welcome. So welcome
Thank you
to
for
being
having
on
me.
the podcast. I've genuinely really enjoyed listening to the instrumental album that you've put out recently. Which, by the way, Adam's released an instrumental album which he has on a pillowcase.
I must thank my girlfriend for putting this together. It is delightful.
Oh, it's got the tracks at the back. That's so cool.
Track list on the back. The artwork was done by a tremendously talented individual. The rock and metal community of Southend should know him. Andy Songhurst from Fortune in Black.
Yeah, I've got a tattoo of his as well. Like the little skull I've got on my arm here.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah,
tremendously talented fella.
He is. I should be really jealous, but I'm like, nah, you're lovely. He's so nice. That's the thing. He's someone he's such a talented guy, and it's like so overly nice. Like, this should feel really sus, but it's not. This is great.
Highly recommend him for anyone else out there who wants any artistic work done. Totally recommend him.
Exactly. So, tell me, why a solo album? Why an instrumental? So, actually, let's start with the solo album question first.
So, really, what I've been brought up with musically is obviously very much on the rock side of things. And when I was kind of getting into it, I have my dad to thank for this, actually. Going right back to the very beginning, I hate to say it, the first band that I really liked and followed was The Darkness. And that then evolved into kind of classic rock with your AC/DCs, Guns N' Roses, things like that. And then discovering Slash with Guns N' Roses and Velvet Revolver, that was kind of I want to grow my hair out and have the curly locks and have the Les Paul up like this and doing all that. That was kind of where I started. And then it all changed for me when I was at sixth form, and a friend of mine introduced me to something called Liquid Tension Experiment.
Oh, yes. They released a record quite recently, haven't they?
That's coming out next month, March the 20-something. I can't remember exactly, but March 20-something next month. Liquid Tension Experiment 3 comes along. Really looking forward to that. But the discovery of that band was the absolute game changer for me, where it was, I didn't know a guitar could do that. I didn't know keyboards could do that. I didn't know fingers could do that. And that was kind of my first dive in to everything instrumental. And it started to go into the heavy range because if you're unaware, Liquid Tension Experiment is basically 3/4 of Dream Theater. And they're very much progressive metal. So that was kind of my way in there. And from there, it was kind of, mimicking your heroes, I suppose. I absolutely love the guitar work of John Petrucci, and with all the guitars and things behind me, you can kind of guess why I've got those kinds of guitars. And it's, for me in music, it's very much portraying journeys and stories. And I do that best via the guitar. I'm definitely not a singer. You will never find me singing. So yeah, for me, it's about going on journeys and adventures and telling that story through music, and in my case, the guitar.
We'll get you singing one day. I'll convince you to do it one day.
Special guest appearance on an album. I don't know. Maybe one day.
One day. But yeah, no, as you were saying with Liquid Tension Experiment and how you never knew that that guitars and keyboards could do things like that. I mean, you can tell that for the people watching the video, you can, if you know anything about guitars, you can tell that Adam has several beautiful Music Men in the background.
Not the real Music Man, sadly. They're the Stirling by Music Mans. Let's just grab one.
Oh, it's fine. Gibson, Epiphone, same thing.
That's the sort of direction we're going in. Yeah. So whereas the full blown American version of this would set me back the equivalent of a mortgage or two, these are much more reasonably priced. And once you put some slightly more expensive electronics in, they play pretty much exactly the same.
Some might say even better, because you don't feel bad about possibly dropping it.
Oh yeah, that's a big thing. The guitars I had before the current set behind me, one of them has a massive great dent in the front of it, and the day that I put it in there, I just couldn't face playing with it anymore.
Yeah,
and that was a not an expensive guitar, not a cheap guitar,
like a mid-range.
It was a mid-range guitar, but even then, the pain of I can't play it when it's got that dent in it. It's not. It was bigger than my finger. It was bigger than my fingertip, so it was a big deal.
Now you see, I have two thoughts about that. I feel like that before a guitar has a dent in it. I recently, somewhat recently, about 6 months ago, I bought a solar guitar, and just because of the way it's shaped, one of the stands that I have doesn't support it, and I found out the hard way. So I've got a dent in like the back corner, but now that's got the dent, I'm like, I don't care too much that it gets dented in, because now I've got that dent. That's kind of that mark of honor for it.
Yeah, for some people, it's kind of like war paint. It's a battle scar from all the gigs and things that it's been on and traveling the world.
It's just been in my office. That's the only place it's been. No gigs.
One of these guitars behind me actually has been to various countries just for me playing around with it. I don't do world tours and whatnot. But
yet,
no, that's been. I can dream.
Theatre. Sorry, I had to. You set me up for that one.
That was good. I'll give you that. That was very good. Yeah, one of these behind me, bolt on neck, pull the whole thing apart, stick it in a suitcase because I don't trust the airline companies to do it correctly, so I do it myself. Chuck it in a heavily padded suitcase, all in pieces, put it back together in the hotel, and then just play along on it.
Oh, that's so cool.
But that's me being a gear nerd.
No, but that's really cool. Like, I would never trust myself to do that, just because I'm like, I will just bugger something up. Something's not going to go right. I'm going to put it back. I'm like, why is it in drop G? This is meant to be in standard. Oh, it's not going past G. What did I do? Oh, there's a big crack throughout the body. I might have done something wrong.
Yeah, if you got cracks down the body, something's gone horribly wrong.
I had that with a Dean Dimeflage ML-shaped guitar, but I don't think it was me who caused it. So like right by the neck, there was a big crack, right where it goes. Like, it didn't move or anything. It was quite solid, but I just never trusted playing. I'm like, this is going to snap. This is going to snap any day now. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, it's not a good position to be in. Looking after your instruments obviously has to be a top priority. And when you know that it's in that kind of condition, you don't want to make it worse. So get it seen by a tech. Oh yeah,
or if you are a tech, brilliant. You save yourself. Exactly. I mean, that's what I tried to do recently, as you are fully aware of, with the pickups. By the way, big help with the earthing bit, because I would never have figured that out. And then I'll be just saying, like, why is it not working? Why are my hands hurting? It feels like they're being electrified. I don't understand.
There's slightly related. There's a funny story from Neanderthal from when we were gigging. This was years ago. We played at a place called Sax Underground in Southend, kind of in the middle of the high street.
Oh, yes, I know.
Don't know if they're still going, but
no, they are. Once. I think they've changed. I think they've changed the name of the underground bit now.
Okay.
I think just as Sax Music Venue rather than Sax Underground.
Good to know.
I might have that wrong, but anyway, sorry, I diverged.
Anyway, story. Yes, and Alec, our singer, was doing some singing down the microphone, some sound checking, and that sort of thing. And he was getting, I think he was getting like an electric shock through his beard.
Oh,
there was something really, really wrong with that microphone and that pathway. But John, the other guitarist, and I were both looking at each other like, that's a badly wired connection somewhere. And the sound guy wasn't having any of it. But yeah, very, very important to get your grounding right. And as I was saying earlier, with these guitars, I've put the slightly more expensive electronics in just to spruce them up a bit and put them up to the American counterpart standards. And grounding is by far the most annoying part to get right because it's so easy to mess it up.
Oh yeah,
It takes a hell of a lot of research and learning to get it right.
there's what's I don't remember the name of the YouTuber now. But it's this bloke who works with electronics, but he will always he would just blow up in his face every single time. Like no one knows if he knows what he's doing or if he's doing it on purpose to show, yeah, this is how dangerous this is. I'm sure you must have seen a video in passing at some point.
I haven't actually, no.
I've had a moment like that once before where I think because I didn't know anything about electronics at the time, I went ahead and removed. I don't think I've connected the earth, and I didn't fit a capacitor in either. And I also removed the earth from one of the extensions. So while I'm playing the guitar, I'm like, I feel buzzing in my fingers.
Yeah, that's and then
that was not good. I did not know that at the time, and I think the fuse blew in the house. So I'm like, oh, that's not good.
I mean, it was technically good because if the fuse blew, that means you didn't blow.
That is true.
So I'd actually say that's quite good, but avoid that happening entirely in the first place.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've learned my lesson then, so that's good.
Yeah. But yeah, guitars. So I'm surrounded by them here, but the main ones I'm using now are the Sterling by Music Man ones. This is called the Majesty model, and these are all John Petrucci guitars. I'm just going to say a bit of a Petrucci fanboy. Love his guitars, love his music, just a little bit.
Can you do the stretch like the 10 meg? That's not enough. That's like 1/4 of it.
If I can go from 24, obviously, these are a smaller gap, but 24th fret, I could probably get to 14. Yeah, I could do a very bizarre chord looking like that. I have no idea what that would sound like. But yeah, that's the stretch there. But yeah, Majesty Guitars, they're kind of like the premiere of what he does. There's all sorts of versions now. I'd actually argue there's too many versions, but anywho. They're neck throughs.
So it's a really pretty guitar. Like I really like the shine that comes off of it.
It's got a color changing thing on it, so it goes between purple, green, and blue. It's mostly purple and green. The blue's quite hard to find, but it is in there somewhere. But yeah, there's a 7-string one there. Damasio for pickups. Again, just trying to emulate the American ones as much as possible. Comes with a little push.
Oh, okay, that's pretty fancy.
These are cool. It's got a little boost in it. So if I want the guitar just to kind of kick a little bit harder, or I want a bit more sustain out of the lead guitar sound, playing along, blah, 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 whack, and I've got some more, and whack, and it's off.
Okay.
Used to do pull, push, pull, but they're kind of like, stop playing.
Yeah.
Stop playing.
Yeah, push, pull is...
bang,
that is actually really cool. Besides someone having a joke, just saying like, oh, buy a legator, legator. How do you pronounce it? Legator.
Legato. It comes from legato, doesn't it? Legator.
Yeah, legator. Just the rolling R at the end. But someone actually does have a genuine question. How do you feel about the trim?
On these?
Yeah.
Overall, they're very good. That you have to set them up correctly, though. It's like a lot of stuff. If you set it up incorrectly, it won't work as intended. But if you take the time to maintain it and give it what it needs, then it will work fine. So just to explain how it works on this, it doesn't lock down the bottom like you would get on a Floyd, but it does lock on the tuners. It's got locking tuning heads. So you feed your string through it, and there's a ball bearing. So you've got a pin coming through the bottom. There's a ball up the top, and then that sits on there. And then it kind of sandwiches the string in. So the string will never, ever move at that point of the guitar. Because I'm assuming the question is going to be about tuning stability, because that's usually where this sort of stuff comes from.
Someone said, never felt I could dive bomb high enough with one.
I've not had trouble on my end with dive bombs, so it could just be personal preference.
Okay.
I think I've had a Floyd on one guitar in the past, and that did go to real extremes. So I suppose if you want a really really huge wide dive, then yeah, you'd go with a Floyd. But for what I do, I don't really do that sort of thing, so it's not for me.
Yeah, he's saying that is like he generally just uses Floyd, so yeah, that makes sense. So the way that the nuts work, is it essentially like an almost like an Evertune?
Definitely not like an Evertune.
No, not to that extreme.
No. Yeah, so you got that circular bit on the end.
Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah.
Screw and unscrew it, and then it feeds through the rest of the peg.
Ah, okay, yeah.
Just sandwiches the string. So then it's permanently locked up there, similar to a Floyd lock up the top. The one thing that you really have to be careful with, though, is just making sure that the nut is clean and you stick some lubricant on it, because the detuning problem comes in when it gets stuck.
Oh, okay.
But it's totally locked on that side. Obviously, that side there's nothing to lock because it's stuck on a lump of metal. But the nut is where it tends to go wrong, because when you scour the internet and see what people say about various guitars, they do tend to complain about tuning stability on guitars like this. It's just how you manage it. If you look after it correctly.
Exactly. Like it completely depends what tools you like to use for what you do. So like you have people who say, I prefer using 7 strings, I prefer using 6 strings, I prefer active, I prefer passive. It all depends what you like as an individual. I understand what you meant with the locking tuners. I have the same on my solo guitar, and I fitted some on my Harley Benton. To be honest, I don't think I'd ever run the guitar without locking tuners now, simply because the tuning stability is just insane. It's just not worth the hassle. And
that's another thing. The guitar tech has improved so much over the years.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, even in how long have I been doing? I've been playing guitar for 16 years now. 16? 15. I've been playing guitar for 15 years now. And even since I started, I had a Les Paul, an MG30, a Marshall MG30, and a Boss GT8.
Oh, okay.
Going way back in time now. And, the Boss GT8, that was pretty good for its time. That was quite renowned.
It really was.
But you look at the world we're in now with Kempers and Axifexes and Line 6 Helixes, and there's even more stuff coming out.
Love my Helix. Sponsor me, Line 6. Sponsor me! and sponsor Adam for the Axe.
Yes, we'll talk about Axifexes in a minute, because that is a whole other world. Learning this thing has been nuts. So I showed you the 7 string. I've got a few of the 6 strings. This one's special. It's not a production finish.
Oh.
Found it somewhere on the depths of the internet, and I had to actually message Stirling by Music Man directly and say, look, I found this on the internet. I love it. Is it a real model produced by you guys? Because I have never seen it. In all the years I've been following them, never seen it exist. And they got back to me and said, yeah, it was a limited run for a few stores in America.
Oh, handy. That is lucky.
So this is my special one. This is the one that I don't let it leave the house where possible, so I can make sure it stays in good condition.
I was going to say, like, did you pick the gold because your previous mention of Guns N' Roses, Slash, and everything? Because he is
very good. I loved the gold top Les Pauls. I was hoping to get one at some point, but then my tastes changed. It didn't work out in the end. But no, it's funny how it's come full circle, where essentially a gold top guitar is now the number one.
If Petrucci and Slash had a baby, that would be his baby.
This is the Petrucci Slash baby. And then if I just quickly jump over to that one back. This was the first one I got of the Petrucci range. This is what they call the JP100. It's all of the Stirling guitars are fashioned after the Music Man ones, but they kind of changed the names up a bit. The Majesties have stayed as they are. This is based on the Ball Family Reserve Petrucci guitar, which was essentially kind of at the time, the super limited guitars where they had the fancy burst finishes. Some of them had gold hardware. Some of them had, how do you pronounce it? Koa, KOA, whatever it is. those fancy wood tops, all that sort of
Oh
stuff.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, and
I know nothing about wood. I'm pretending like I know, but I
some
haven't
very
delved that far.
expensive wood. All I know
I
is
haven't
it's
gone
some
down
very
that far in the
expensive
rabbit
wood.
hole yet.
But yeah, they were the super nice premium guitars at the time, and I wanted to get a couple of them. So this was the first one I got. I think it was actually one of the first in the country, because when I ordered it, I knew it was coming out, but it wasn't actually in the stores yet. So I had to get in touch with, at the time it was Allegro Music, who then got in touch with the, what's it called? The group who kind of handled the country's stock. I can't remember their names. I think it's Strings and Things or something. And they then obviously got them in and sent one straight to me. So
would that have been Strings Direct?
Is that the shop in Rochford?
Yeah.
No, it's not them.
Okay.
It's they're based somewhere in the south. I can't remember where exactly, but you can't do business directly with them.
Oh, okay.
It has to go through the shops like Allegro and P&T, things like that. But yeah, okay. These are the bolt-on ones. This is the one that's been to various places in the world with me. Canada, Italy, Germany, where I've just pulled the thing apart, strung it back up again, and bam, bam, done. Damasio pickups again. Doesn't have the push. This is just a regular volume part, but it's got the trem again.
So I'm guessing one of the switches is a kill switch. Is that right?
Now that's something to talk about. The Majesty has them as well. I've put them in there, but I run it slightly differently on these. So you've obviously got your electric guitar pickups.
Yeah.
The American Petrucci guitars have a piezo pickup in them.
Okay.
And that comes in a specially designed saddle. It's really nice. It's got this metal cover over it, so you don't ever touch the studs. It's like perfectly smooth on your hand.
Oh, okay.
But that's what you get for premium price. I had to do it myself, so this is what I came up with. Graphtech do what they call the ghost pickups, and they can be used as MIDI pickups or piezo pickups. Ooh, so somewhere in the electronics compartment, there's a little circuit board which those are connected to. That goes through a stereo out. The left side goes to the electric side of the rig, and the right side goes to a piezo side of the rig. So I can then jump between electric sounds and acoustic sounds, bang, just like that.
That's awesome. That's really, really cool. I love that mod. That's actually really, really dapper.
It is an absolute pain to install, but I love it. It's mainly for live use. Studio use, it doesn't sound great for recording, but just for going up on stage and quick, I need an acoustic guitar. Oh, here we go. Flip the switch, bang.
That is really awesome. By the way, someone in the chat has asked another question. It's the same person.
I haven't got the chat up, so I'm relying on you. Sorry.
No, that's perfectly fine, mate. Do you have a Majesty cutlass?
A Music Man cutlass?
I believe so. I think he just asked, does he have a Majesty cutlass? And then
I'm afraid I don't. There was, when I was doing, I did a few video game covers earlier in 2020.
Oh, they were good. I had to listen to them before the album was
the one with the strange looking cat, the Persona 5 one, because that's more of a Strat kind of sound. I was actually looking at getting a cutlass for it, but then I found the gold guitar. So it was like, no, all money's going on that. All money's going on that. No cutlasses. We're getting the gold one. So I nearly had a cutlass. In the future, if I manage to find some more pennies, I'll definitely look into getting one. And then I can diverge from the Petrucciism. Can try and do something different.
Oh, I completely understand the obsession with certain guitarists, because I bought a Solar. I'm like, I love this. I want another one. Literally, just the day I got it, I'm like, this is great. This sounds amazing. Yeah. But now I'm looking at trying to get one with Fishman pickups in, because now he fits them with Fishman's. I'm like,
now they're a big thing at the moment. The Fluence pickups. I really enjoy listening to Devin Townsend, and he's got a signature set now, and it's just fascinating hearing him talk about it, because when you think about what the technology is, where these things are literally just giant magnets with wires coming out of them, that's basically what they are. But
like the most basic manner, but then
obviously they're a bit more complicated than that, but at their core and most basic level, it's a magnet with wires. But you look at these Fluence things, and there's essentially layers of magnets this time. So on one layer, you've got a Strat kind of single coil sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then the layer under that, you've got an active humbucker, and the layer under that, you've got a passive. And then you can just jump between them like that.
It's so clever. It's like with the Evertune bridge. Like the Evertune bridge is such a clever device. Like when I first got the guitar, because you've got all these fancy guitars, all I've got is the Solar. So I'm like, that's what I've got to fall back on. This is great. Ola's amazing. But anyway, enough fanboying.
Sorry, just jump in, but because people always ask, why have you got so many guitars? Because they're all tuned differently.
Yeah.
Gold one's in E standard. This one is in A. It shouldn't be in A, but I've broken all the rules, put the thickest strings I could find on it, and used it to do the Dark Tower on the album. So it's just pure sludge. But yeah, all different tunings. That's why. Anyway, sorry, continue.
No, that's fine. When I first got it, because there's not a lot of sources on how to set up an Evertune bridge in any capacity. Well, there is, but it's not quite. Like, I use it in a manner that you can still play, like in like the midpoint manner, where it's like, oh, it doesn't go out of tune immediately, but it also lets you do vibrato and just all like little fancy bits.
I haven't looked into Evertunes too much, but again, just using Devin Townsend as an example, I've seen him talk about it where I had
to watch that video to try and get it.
Yeah, and then it will work. So it's kind of, you can have it just perfectly in tuned and intonated where nothing changes, and then you change something on the tuning peg, and then it lets you explain.
So the way it works is you have 3 zones. You've got zone 1, which you're just never going to be in zone 1. Like, that's just completely out of tune. The strings are probably going to start slapping you in the face if you try and play them.
Okay.
So it's like just, Mr. Floppy land. Then you've got zone 2. That is the Evertune zone. So that's where you're in tune and so on and so forth. Now, the way it works is it stays in tune from the tension that you're trying to go from. So you set the tension with the machine heads, and you want to just be in zone 2, and there's a big gap which is just zone 2, so that will just stay in tune. Now, the way that most people will try and have it, so you can play vibratos and bends and things. Now, what's really interesting is you can set what you're going to want to do is you want to get to the edge of zone 2, and when it reaches a certain threshold, it goes into zone 3. So zone 3 is a normal guitar.
Right.
So you can set each string to its own sensitivity. So as an example, say you're just a funny player and you're like, I tend to bend the higher strings a bit too much. Fine, you just set it a bit low and just takes more to bend it, and so on and so forth. So I've set it up a little bit like that. So, like, the lower notes I have more sensitive, while the higher ones have got less sensitivity, and so on. Then you tune it with a special key. There it is. So you tune it with this little hex key right in the back. So that's how you intonate it. So with that, you have like 2 or 3 points where you intonate it and tune it. So it's not that the Evertune never goes out of tune, but
it's very hard to get it out of tune.
Yeah. So as an example, I've got the solo right there. I think it would take me playing for 2 or 3 weeks and just leave it there for a week for it to go out of tune. But then again, like heat and cold conditions, so on and so forth. Of course, wood, it warps. So yeah, it completely depends on the condition. But if it's out by maybe 2 cents. That's it. It's made recording.
People wouldn't notice it.
Most people wouldn't. I mean, it's been an absolute blessing when recording, because I've been recording guitars and Luke has been recording guitars. Luke is a far better player than me. I openly admit that. However, he will have to do more takes because his guitar doesn't have locking tuners and doesn't have an Evertune. I think he's using an ESP. I want to say a Telecaster model. I'm not sure, but he'll play it through. I'm like, oh, sorry, dude, it's gone slightly out of tune because you did a bend there, so you've got to go back. Me, I'll yeah, I won't play as good as him, but I have to take less takes because I'm not having to worry about tuning. I can just focus on play, and that's
Hmm.
it. So, yeah, Evertunes have been absolutely amazing. Really, I think they're absolutely fantastic.
Oh yeah, they're definitely the way forward with tech, and especially kind of the hardtail bridges. A lot harder to pull off for tremolos. I don't know how they're going to improve on them.
They're gonna manage to do that at some point. Probably something along the lines like the Evertune, but for the machine head. But then that would make the Evertune redundant if they managed to do something like that. Like I'm not
Hmm.
clever enough to come up with anything like that. If I did, I'd probably make millions.
Well, there you go. There's your next venture. Figure out how
Yeah,
to make an Evertune. Well, you have to get in touch with them and make sure you're not breaking any laws. But yeah, that kind of
exactly.
idea. But yeah, that's guitars. There's an acoustic sitting next to me that appeared a few times. There's a bass somewhere in the corner of this room that obviously got some use recording the album.
Talking about the album, actually,
Yes.
as we diverge to speaking about lovely things that create all the noises that help create the album. So, why an instrumental album rather than one with vocals or yada yada yada?
Kind of spoke about it earlier. That's how I like to express it. I mean, this particular album was kind of a bit of a personal and emotional journey. The first one I did, Renatus, was literally just, I want to play shred guitar. Let's do some songs where I just shred and shred and shred and just chuck it at people.
Yeah,
And it was what it was. But there was a distinct feeling of, oh, thank goodness it's done. It's out. I'm not going to do anything with it anymore. And that was pretty much it. I did it. And by the end of it, I was sick and horrified with the songs. It's like, oh, I don't want to listen to this anymore. This one's a much different story, and it went through a lot of phases. So 2 years after Renatus came out, Renatus was 2016. So around 2018, that was okay, let's start writing some new things. Again, I just want to write shred. Let's just melt some faces and do that sort of thing. And a few ideas came out of that, but it wasn't enough for an album. So it was then a case of, right, I'm not getting good enough material for an album here. Let's go for an EP. Let's do that, get a few, spread it around, do the YouTube thing and get it out that way. Still an instrumental at this point because it's telling that shreddy story, I suppose. Then there was a time where it was, I don't know if I want to do the instrumental thing anymore. And I did for a while deviate from that. And I started writing lyrics for it, for the EP that was kind of in the works at the time. And I even got as far as speaking to a couple of vocalists about kind of guesting and singing over the top of it. So it was an idea in the works for a while. And then I went back again. I was like, no, I don't want people singing over it. I want to have my guitar singing over it and doing that sort of thing. So it came back to that. And then I got to recording it. It was 4 songs, got through all the rhythm guitars, the bass, and the drums. And then my hard drive completely stopped working. Lost the lot.
Oh, that would be, yeah. I don't think I would do a record again at that point because I'm like, nah, I'm done.
I didn't. And that then leads on to how this album came to be in its current form, because that plus various other things that I won't talk about in my life kind of sent me on a bit of a downward spiral. Had a bit of a battle with depression and anxiety and things like that. You might remember at the Marine Metal 2019.
Yeah, I remember the speech that you gave. I thought it was fantastic. It was beautiful, really.
Yeah, that came from the heart. And I remember that kind of being a bit of hang on a minute, I need to sort myself out a bit here, because I obviously needed to get up and do something. And I did. And when 2020 came along, it was a case of, well, I've spent the last couple of years twiddling around. I don't want to record anymore. I don't want to write anymore. And it was then 2020, and it was, let's sort myself out. Let's set a reasonable goal. And that's where the video game covers came from. It was then a case of, well, if I can manage a song a month, then that's me back on track. Yeah. And I did that for 4 months in a row. And by that point, proper lockdown was in effect. Lockdown 1 was well and truly in effect. And it was then, well, I've got some covers, I've got some originals. let's up the game a bit. Let's do a couple of YouTube gigs. And I did a couple of YouTube gigs. They went down a tree, and it was, I feel good about music again. Let's do this. And by that point, I was in a really good place. And it was then a case of, well, let's think back on what I'd done for the last 2 years and how rubbish it's been. And let's fuel all of that into the creation of this. And that is exactly what happened.
The cathartic process of creating this instrumental music from the place that is Adam.
Yes. There's one song in particular on that album which really is tremendously powerful. The Depths of Solitude, song number 4, The Depths of Solitude. That was kind of thinking of my absolute lowest during those few months where I would just lock myself away. I wouldn't talk to anybody. People would try to get me involved in things and I'd just turn them down. And just thinking of the composition of it, I wanted it just to be kind of reflecting that solitude, that isolation. And you got the first verse in there. I say verse, it's prog. You don't really follow traditional strong song structures, although I do try just to kind of make it more accessible. But anyway, what is the first verse was originally just an acoustic guitar playing by itself, whereas normally there's 4 or 5 or 6 electric guitars playing at the same time. Just stripped it all back to one acoustic guitar to kind of reflect that. Then just put a single lead guitar in just for that echoey kind of ambient sound, and then it builds and builds. It goes through just some really emotive playing in the chorus, but then just drops to one acoustic guitar again. And that was my most proggy moment, actually.
It was really interesting. To be honest, the drops felt organic as well. They didn't feel like cut and they're like, oh, there's an acoustic. What? No, it felt really organic.
That second acoustic bit was me being a complete and utter prog snob. I'm going to throw my hands up, and like, it's not even trying to be musical, but it did actually work. It started in 4/4 with the strumming, but then I took a 16th note out every time, so the time signature would just gradually drop and get smaller each time.
Oh, that's actually pretty cool.
And I just wanted to do it from a prog snob point of view, because you kind of have to, as doing what I do. But in terms of what it was contributing to the song, it actually worked really well, because it was a gradual descent into madness. And when that bit finishes, you get this massive, dirty, sludgy, heavy as hell electric guitar bit, which is just screaming out like, I need help. Someone help me, get me out of here. And it just fit perfectly. And I think that's one of the things that I've kind of grown up and evolved to be a bit better at, is that composition where everything you write has a purpose.
Yeah.
I'm a school teacher, and I kind of have to do this with the kids, where every sentence that they write in their English book has to have a purpose.
Oh yeah.
Where it's not just, my name is Bob and I do this and I do this and I do this and I do that. But why have you written that? And I guess I've taken that same philosophy that I used on 9-year-olds to my own music.
Yeah, but it makes sense. There's actually an interview from Ghost I've read not too long ago, and I think that was like the third album. He brought a bunch of songs in. The producer, I can't remember his name, which producer he used, but the producer just talked Tobias to his side and said, "Okay, this part, what purpose does that have? Is that just a fill? Because it doesn't serve any purpose for the rest of the song. It doesn't make sense." Like with going quickly back to the acoustic part, you know, where you're reducing the signature.
Yeah.
Like what I find personally, I find quite difficult. I think a lot of people find it difficult while also writing it, is being like, prog is being clever, essentially. Prog is always considered like quite a clever type of music, but what I find with prog is it's very difficult to find that midpoint of being clever and organic. Because when you're doing clever playing, a lot of the time it can feel quite like, oh, I'm playing all the right notes, but why does it feel like that doesn't belong here? And I think that's a feeling that you get that's something that you get down really well throughout the album, which I find each song is different in its own way, but it feels organic to itself. So it just continues the story, and it has a good pacing.
That was a deliberate choice. If I, we've got, I guess we've got time. I can
We've
go
got
through
lots of time.
We've got loads of time. Yeah. The first track was very much, it's called Awakening, and it's designed to be exactly that. It's, here's the new album. I'm going to set it up, kind of build up in your face. But it had kind of a second purpose, because I don't know if you noticed, some of the tracks had little eyes next to them, like Roman numerals.
I don't think I have.
Let me grab. Yeah, I don't know how well this will show up on camera, but there you go. So Awakening was the first one. The Wings of Time was the second one.
Yes, sorry, Roman. Yeah, I know what you mean now. Sorry, you mean the Roman numerals, yeah.
Yeah. And the reason for that, there was a second thing going on with this album at the same time. So the majority of the tracks, those 7 big ones, they kind of cover my journey. But those 3 kind of weaved in at the same time, where I just wanted to be a bit more experimental and improvisational. So those 3 songs weren't written. It was literally just, let's just get the guitar, get the keyboards out. I was a bit more creative with the keyboards on this one and just see what happens. Particularly the last one, Ethereal Skies, that was just grab a keyboard, make some sounds. And guitars came completely last on that. I started with all the keyboard parts, came up with whatever I came up with, figured out what I played, and then dumped guitar over the top of it. But it works really, really well.
That's the worst part, when you're playing something that you're just like, oh, this is really cool. And what did I play?
We were talking about that a little while ago, I think.
We were, because I was saying how when I was doing songwriting on my streams, what happens, because I'm not writing everything down onto Tux guitar, I'm like, what am I playing? So I'll write like 3 minutes worth of music. I'm like, what did I play? Like, I'm playing chords that I usually wouldn't use. I'm like, I can't figure this out. I think I'm just going to stop streaming because it's embarrassing now.
It definitely made life easy doing it on the keyboard, because running it through Pro Tools, you've got all the MIDI notes up on the screen. So I was fortunate in the sense that I could very quickly see what I did and kind of pull back. Right, it was that. And then if I got a chord wrong, or easily fixed, just pencil in the note that you want on Pro Tools. And that's one way to do it.
It makes life quite easy. MIDI just makes life really easy in that regard.
Oh, MIDI is brilliant. Absolutely superb. But yeah, that's Awakening. Awakening was kind of the birth of the whole album, the birth of both of the concepts, the whole emotional journey, and then what I kind of call those 3, I kind of in my head call them the Universe Trilogy.
Okay.
Rubbish name, but
it's it makes sense. I mean, it's just because it's used a lot doesn't necessarily mean it's a rubbish name.
Yeah. But the Awakening thing was kind of, well, let's do the birth of something big, like, I don't know, the solar system or the universe, Big Bang, that sort of thing. I love my space and sci-fi. And then the second one, The Wings of Time, that's kind of the breather in all of the madness, where it's just kind of, I'm just going to sit back and let time pass. Just going to sit on the wings of time and just let it go. I'm not going to get better. I'm just going to sit and let time pass and do nothing. And that's where that one came from. But the name of that song and the whole time thing came from an online game that I play, Final Fantasy 14.
Oh, I just got a 6-month subscription yesterday. It's got really into it last year. And then I burnt myself out because I think I literally just played that for 3 weeks on straight. And now I'm like, I want to go back onto it because it's really good. Final Fantasy 14 is amazing.
It is. I can talk about that for hours on end, so we'll put that one on hold for the moment. But that came from one of the storylines with Alexander, who's essentially a time travel sort of summon thing. And you get a title for beating him, where you've got your character name and then a title underneath called The Wings of Time. And that was just like, oh yeah, that just works for what I'm doing. That's where that idea came from. And then Ethereal Skies was kind of just the culmination of everything. We've gone through this disastrous journey at the start. We've gone through the more uplifting middle, and it's all building up. And then you just get this dramatic explosion of sound with choirs and orchestras and guitars screaming. And it's just kind of like the end of a musical, but a little bit heavier.
Oh yeah, of course.
But yeah,
that's like a rock opera.
That's the trilogy. Yes. That's the trilogy. So second song, Falling from Heaven, does exactly what it says on the tin. I've always been a very positive and fortunate person. I'm very lucky with everything that I've got, where I live, friends I've got, girlfriend I've got, family I've got. I've been very, very fortunate. And for me to kind of go through what I did was a massive shock to the system, and it's falling from heaven. I've been living in heaven for years, and now, does exactly what it says on the tin. It's very literal, that one. In the Shadows kind of dealt with the anxiety kind of thing, where it felt like there's always someone watching me, judging everything that I did.
Yeah.
And that song was just designed to kind of creep up and be a bit anxious and angsty. I had great fun with the guitar solo on that one.
I genuinely wish I could play solos at certain times. I'm like, nah, I just want to play rhythm. I can't play solos.
You do what you want. That's the thing with music, and it's kind of part and parcel of what I do with prog, is that you don't have a glass ceiling. You don't give yourself a limit of, I'm just going to play 4 minutes of music. I'm just going to play 4/4. I know 4/4 has its purpose, and that's partly my philosophy. It'll be a case of, I don't care that it's not in 4/4. Some of the stuff ends up being 15/16 or 17/16. It's like, for most, it's going to be a bit, why is that an extra note there? But if it contributes to what the song's trying to get across, then keep it. That's in the Shadows. Depths of Solitude, I've mentioned already. That is just the complete drop, the descent, the dive into the worst of what I went through. Wings of Time was then kind of that midpoint breathing space. Beyond the Seventh Sea is a fun one. That I wanted a pirate bit. I just had to get a pirate bit in there somewhere, and then kind of about halfway through the song, you get this something like that.
It's fine that you're not from Scotland. He's not from Scotland either.
No, born and bred in Essex.
Oh, he's from Gravesend. Like the guy from Hailstorm's actually from Gravesend, so I don't understand why it's Scottish pirate battle. But
oh dear, but that one was very much a case of it's going to be a bit heavy. It's going to be a bit rough. We're not totally out of the woods yet, but I wanted it to be really, really upbeat and optimistic at the same time. Kind of like, we always hear of people sailing the seven seas. And I was thinking outside the box of, well, what if there was another one, but they just didn't discover it?
Yeah.
What if there's actually an eighth sea out there, which no one discovered? I needed a rubbish movie to watch earlier, and I put on The Meg with Jason Statham.
I refuse to watch that at this point.
It's actually better than... I mean, obviously, it's a load of Hollywood garbage, but as far as Hollywood garbage goes, it was quite a fun watch. But the premise of it is that you've got a marine biologist group who are just exploring the ocean and trying to find the deepest part. And I can't remember the name of it, but part of the world where it's the deepest.
Is it the Mariana Trench?
That's the one, Mariana Trench. Yeah, they talked about that, but they found one that went even further below that. But no one discovered it because there was this really thick layer of gas over it that kind of shrouded over it. Scientifically accurate, who knows? But nah. But that kind of idea of, what if there was something out there, there was another sea, or there was another place which people just hadn't discovered yet. And the idea of that song is that it's my getting up, taking action, and trying something new, and just going out there with that brave face of breaking through the boundaries. That led into Deliverance. The one goal of Deliverance was it had to be high, energetic, and happy. There are a few kind of sludgy bits in there because nothing's ever perfect.
Oh yeah.
But for the most part, it just had to sing and be nice and screamy and happy, and it did that. And then the sludgy one, the Dark Tower. Roar. That was the one where I used that guitar tuned down to A, and yeah. I would never have described myself as a gent kind of guitarist, but everyone
you're a fairly good gentleman.
But no, for everyone who has heard it, I remember showing it to Dale Selleck, who works at PMT, now in walking coma. I showed it to him when it was just an idea, when he was working at PMT, and the first word that he said was like, oh, that's djenty. I never thought I did djent. And then I showed it to, or rather, Neanderthal heard it when they came out, and John said, "Oh, this is so djenty. I like this." And everyone who's spoken to me about it said, "It's just such a djent song." And it's like, I didn't intend it to be, but whatever. It was totally dark and sludgy. The placement of it was always a bit of a, do I put it there? Does it go with the Depths of Solitude? Where's it going to go? But I kind of picture it as the final boss in a game.
Yeah.
Where every journey is obviously going to have its up bits, but even when everything is going right and wonderful, you're still going to bump into a wall at some point. That's what the Dark Tower was. It was the wall, that final block. And if you could just break past that tower, climb it, hit the top, you'll then get to where your final destination is.
Is it also a reference to the Stephen King books?
It wasn't, but I was very much thinking of Lord of the Rings at the same time.
Okay, that makes sense though. Because when I saw that title, I thought, I wonder if he reads Dark Tower series. So one sec, my cat's trying to get out.
No worries. My cat is somewhere, probably sleeping. There you go. But yeah, that was the Dark Tower. That's just pure sludge. Love it. And that then led to Ethereal Skies, which I had mentioned earlier. It's kind of the culmination of everything, just a sky full of color, a universe exploding. And that's where that artwork came from. I said to Andy, I wanted something where it's kind of the universe expanding and everything growing and just color and majestic sights and all of that. And that's where that idea came from.
Oh, okay.
And then the final song is the title track. I deliberately did this one so that I wrote none of it until everything else was finished.
Okay.
It was a deliberate decision where I wanted the rest of the album done, and then I would do that as a standalone on the end. The original idea, and like most things, it doesn't always go to plan, was that it was going to kind of borrow bits of all the other songs and kind of culminate everything together into one final presentation. It kind of works like that. But then when I was playing and improvising with it, I just came up with so many ideas for it that it was, you know what, let's just make this a completely fresh song. And lo and behold, it worked. It's a really special one to me because particularly the chorus, it's just got that real, like, I found my salvation. I've got through the worst of it. I'm at the top of the world now. That
feeling of catharsis right at the end.
It's the end of the journey. It's the credit scene. It's just all bright and happy, ready to pack up and go home. It's really, I really enjoyed putting that one together. But yeah, deliberate decision. Didn't write any of it until everything else was done.
Okay. It's an interesting decision to make. Right there, isn't it? It's worked. And again, like you mixed and mastered all of it yourself, didn't you?
Yes, did the whole lot.
And to be honest, what I do like about it is it's got enough meat to be quite heavy, but it's not muddy. While it's very clear without being tinny and just too thin. So no, you've done absolutely fantastic with it, and it sounds amazing. It's a great record.
Thank you.
I'm not someone who likes a lot of instrumental records in general. So this I genuinely enjoyed and would listen to on a repeat basis. Like instrumental stuff, like I'll listen to Zappa, things like that. Really, so I'm like part of like a very small percentage of people that likes very, very odd music. There are two questions that I did get during the chat of the album, but I thought they're not really relevant to what we could add here. Actually, one of them is, but the first one is first question is, do you follow While She Sleeps in any capacity?
I've never heard of it.
Okay. Yeah, just because someone's asked, I had a question. Does he know who While She Sleeps are? If so, what does he think about them trying to remake the music industry for musicians? So, well,
I couldn't answer that question.
Sorry, Ed.
Sorry. Well, I suppose what I could say, for me, I'm a full-time teacher, so I do this purely as hobby. I don't do this to make money. I just do it as this is what I enjoy. But from kind of watching on the sidelines, because I know a lot of people are very much, well, how do I get into the music industry? How do I succeed in the music industry? Just kind of, again, from the sidelines, the impression that I get is that, as much as I hate to say it, the band scene is either too difficult to make it, or at its worst, just straight up impossible to make it. I don't want to be a defeatist, but it's the old 1 in a million thing. But what I've seen over the last few years is that things like video game music, that's very successful at the moment, because there's so many ways to get video games now. Everyone plays something on their phone. I assume everyone does. Yeah, everyone plays something on their phone. That game needs music. Anyone who's got a games console, PlayStation, Xbox, whatever, well, those games need music. You need musicians. TV shows, they have opening themes, they have ambient sounds through it. Bang, you need music for that. Hollywood needs musicians. Bang, anime needs musicians.
Exactly.
That sort of thing, I think, is where musicians can now make a name for themselves. And if I think of all the people that I follow on Spotify and iTunes and watch on YouTube doing covers of video game things, that's what's getting you noticed. Lindsey Stirling is a violin. I don't know if you know Lindsey Stirling.
Oh yeah, no, she's massive.
She got her success. Oh yeah, she got her success not through America's Got Talent, because what's his face, really horrible guy.
Simon Cowell,
that's the guy. Simon Cowell basically said she's going to be a nobody, kicks her off the show, and then she went off and did video game covers, then released an album, then went on a world tour, then did a second album, you get the idea.
Yeah, she's become massive in a very short, sort of self-made time frame as well, which is actually quite interesting, really, because you do see a lot of, someone's saying that might be Piers Morgan that might have said that, but that might have been on Britain's Got Talent, because she wouldn't have been on X Factor, would she? She would.
No, she's American, so it was the American whatever show it was.
But one of the talent competitions, anyway.
One of those. But someone did come along and say, I think it was Piers Morgan, actually, because I remember they sent a tweet back on Twitter saying, like 5 years later or whatever, they sent a tweet back saying, we got it wrong. We're really sorry. Congratulations and everything you've achieved. So yeah, I think it was Piers Morgan in hindsight, actually. Yeah.
But no, it's interesting to see, because you have a lot of like mainstream successful artists, and a lot of them come from money. You can, like, if you do a little bit of digging, it's like, okay, their parents are like a net worth of 8 million or something. And it's like, that's just one parent. So it's like, you've had that already. You live in LA, and so on and so forth. But then someone like Lindsey Stirling, who comes from a more humble background, it's inspiring, and it's lovely to see that people like that can make it with something that a lot of people would probably have considered a dying art form, considering, like, opera, classical music. That's for, like, 5 generations ago, so on and so forth. So it's great that someone like that can inspire and project such amazing music by themselves, self-made, so to speak.
Yeah. But kind of going back to the original point of the question about the music industry and what to do with it, I don't claim to be an expert. I'm a class teacher. That's my full-time job. But kind of just sitting on the sidelines and watching, I'd say kind of getting your name out there with things that people like, covers, is the way forward. It's not ideal, and I don't like the idea personally, but I think it is just the way the world is going. People want to hear stuff that they know.
I mean, look at Disturbed. Like, they have they've got a great back catalogue, but some of their biggest songs are the cover of Land of Confusion and Sound of Silence, which has catapulted them onto completely different areas, which probably affected how they wrote the most recent album, which is a fair bit softer than any of their previous releases. For those of you who didn't know, Adam and his band Neanderthal did do a cover of Disturbed's, I want to get the name right.
In the Fire?
Yes, it isn't. Yeah, In the Fire. It was, Devon, I done 11. Na 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 na
That's
na
that
na
one.
na na.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a
Marine
great
metal.
cover.
That was marine metal.
Yes, and that was a fantastic cover. To be honest, it's like, oh, that's really cool.
But that's what gets people noticed, because if someone knows that you can play their favorite song really, really well, they'll listen to you.
Oh yeah, of course.
If you come along with songs that no one's ever heard of, it'll be something my parents always said with what I do is, well, I know that you've played that song, but I don't know if you've played it correctly because I don't know the song. Whereas when I went and played Rush's YYZ to them, it's like, oh, he's really good. My son's really good. He knows how to play that song.
I think, no, I agree with that. It's a shame that covers do get you noticed, but it's also interesting to see what people's takes are on certain songs, because we've come into an age over the last 20, 30 years ish, because of like remixes and things like that. Like look at someone like Scoot. Like, I'm not sure if you follow electronic music a lot, but like Scooter from the 2000s, like almost all of their songs are derivative works from already popular works.
If my girlfriend were here with me right now, she'd be going, yep. And I'm just sitting here, nope, don't know.
It's the stuff that I grew up with, considering that I've lived on mainland Europe. So that's the stuff that, like, I had like Rammstein and Scooter and all that stuff. So that was pretty cool. So I had to grow up with that kind of environment. But when you,
I must talk to her about Scooter later.
Hyper. But anyway, there's another question someone has asked.
Yeah, certainly.
Sorry, I'm just catching up with chat. So, Harry O007. Hi, Adam. As you know, I don't know if that's how they speak. Maybe I'll just go a bit lower. Hi, Adam. As you know, I have listened to the new album a few times. Good job. I have to comment that earlier you mentioned drop to acoustic and the proggy bits. Some of those have a definite improvised feel. Intentional, or did they just happen? I don't know.
Question.
Sorry, Harry, if I got your voice completely wrong. I don't know what you sound like at
all. Depths of Solitude. Oh, God, I've got to think really hard now. Right.
Your other half is actually on here. So he doesn't even know who Supertramp is, let alone Scooter.
I know who Supertramp is. Depths of Solitude. Most of that was definitely structured. The acoustic bit was definitely improvised, though. Yeah. But the second half of the acoustic bit, the one where it's got that progressive drop down, that was obviously keyed in and structured. It had to be 4/4, 15/16, 7/8, and it had to do that. But aside from that, it was, let's find some chords that fit the mood. I kind of had the idea of, well, let's go chromatic at certain times. And I think actually that descending bit was, I think that bit was entirely chromatic, but then just changing the voicing of the chord to just add to that tension.
Chromatic is a funny one because it's not really a scale. It's just notes. That's all it is. Do you ever have that where you'll sit there, you're trying to write something like, let's throw a chromatic in there, like, oh no, it's an outrage.
There are some, it's like most things. My descending time signature thing, most of the time that would be unlistenable. But in that particular instance, it worked. And there's a few guitar solos that I do where I shouldn't have done chromatic, but actually it worked. There's one on The Dark Tower where I tried my best to stick to a scale, but there was one note on one bit where it just sounded better going off that scale. For the sake of one note, it worked.
I do find funny is the argument between knowing theory and improvising. I think both of them have a great place, and it really depends on how you work. Some people have made millions just improvising their works just because their ears just work in that manner. Others work better in one way, but it really depends on, as we've discussed earlier, whatever tool works for you. Not one tool works for everyone.
Absolutely. I mean, if we're talking tools, actually, we were talking about axe effects and things earlier.
Yes. Tell us about the axe effects.
So Before I dive, I can bring it up on screen as well because I have the magic of technology at my fingers. But I don't know if you remember the gear that I used to cart around before getting this thing. I don't know if you saw any Neanderthal gigs before that point.
I'm sure I have, but I don't think I wasn't a gearhead at the time, so I probably wouldn't have paid attention at the time. I think that the most noticeable change that I saw with you was when you've had long hair, then suddenly you had short hair. I was like, whoa, oh, that's Adam.
That's a very funny story, actually, because again, being a school teacher, I then had to go to work. One day I had really, really long hair, and the kids had known that for years. And then I turn up one day with all of it gone. And that was such a funny day because it was after the Easter holidays, first day back at school. And I actually wasn't teaching that morning. I was doing a management-y thing somewhere on the other end of the building. So the kids didn't actually see me in the morning. So I just rocked up in the middle of their lesson, just turned up, went, "Hi, guys." And the room was just silent. Jaws on the floor, just pure silence of...
No, you see, that's where my problem... That's where my problem is. I remember people from their haircuts. I shouldn't. It's one of the worst ways to try and identify people. And when someone does something slightly different with their hair, I'm like, have we met?
Let me bring up... I'm going to make a mess of this. Hang on. That one.
It's gone all dark.
Here we go. This thing.
Oh, but that's really cool.
So I used to do the big rig thing. This was the small version.
That was the
there was a bigger version of this where it had an extra power amp on it, so I could run it stereo with the two speakers. But for practicing with the band and just little gigs, I would do a one speaker setup. But back in the day, and I mean, if we're going back to before multi-effects processors were a thing, this is what most big guitar players would have had to do. You obviously had your amp head. It had a tray with effects pedals on it that went in the front end of the amp. Had a crybaby rack thing. That was the most stupidly expensive thing that I ever bought, and it's the stupidest idea I've ever had, among many anyway. But yeah, that was in there. And this was my first experience playing around with the Axe-Effects, because I originally used them just as an effects unit, similar to how Petrucci does, because, you know, Petrucci fanboy.
Yeah.
I'm honest about it. But that was kind of my... I had, like I mentioned the Boss GT8 earlier. I also dabbled with the TC Electronics units, the G Major and the G-Force. Kind of got to know the delays a bit in there. But getting this Axe-Effects, that was the game changer. That was, wow, the possibilities with this are just ridiculous. The stuff you can do with it is nuts. Other bits in the bottom, for amp switching and managing the piezo, that's hidden away in there. But that's where I was, and I'm pretty sure I've given myself eternal back and shoulder damage lifting all this stuff. So on that note of the tools and the different uses, for a touring musician who's got roadies and private planes and all that sort of stuff to take them around the world, or however they do it, you know, that works for certain people. But for someone who plays at Chinnery's every now and again, does most of his recording at home, it's beyond overkill.
Yeah, but that's... You say that, but as an example, you've got Jeff Loomis, who's now in Arch Enemy. He uses a Helix and a Kemper. So it's that's complete like, I look at that and think that's absolute overkill. You don't need a Kemper and a Helix. It's one or the other. Well, you've got Jen from who plays in Evanescence. She uses a Helix. That's all she uses. And like, Evanescence are a fairly big band, I believe.
Yeah.
I think people have heard of them. And she's done an interview not too long ago where she discusses how, I used to have 14 guitars on the road. Now I only take about 4 of them with me because I just drop tune them. You can't hear that live. I'm not drop tuning them enough to be noticeable electronically. It's not noticeable enough, and it's also not economic enough for me to take all these guitars with me. I don't need all these guitars, and it makes sense. So, as you said, like you started playing with smaller gear because you're playing local, but to be honest, it makes sense. in regards
Mm,
just economy is economical.
absolutely.
Economically, there we go. That's
I
what I'm
mean,
looking for.
you mentioned a few musicians there. There's a Mike Portnoy group involving Bumblefoot and Billy Sheehan called Sons of Apollo, and the pair of them
Oh,
just
that's
use.
so good.
They're fantastic. They both use helixes. I met Bumblefoot actually. If I go back to my Facebook thing, hang on. But I think it was the week before I got my hair cut, I met Bumblefoot. Where is he? Here he
Or
is. Here he is.
we're taking a right
Here we
back
go.
to
Oh, yeah, he did that whole clinic, and he's done all of his Sons of Apollo show with, guess what? Helix.
Oh, he would have also had one of the first ones. Must have done
Probably.
because that's you with long hair as well. So
That's me with long hair, yeah. But Billy Sheehan in particular, he's a massive advocate for them. And if you think of, he's played with Steve Vai, he's traveled the world God knows how many times.
I think they've actually added a preset of his onto the Helix like directly.
Yeah.
Him, Townsend, one of the guys from Periphery, Misha Mansour, is that?
Misha Mansour, yeah. He's a massive Axe Effects person, actually.
I know the guy who used to do Death Clock, Brendan Small. He is a big Helix fan. I think he was one of the first people that got to demo it as well. He's like, oh, this is incredible. I think he used it on his latest record.
Right.
Like he managed to make great records with a Pod 500.
The Pod is one of those mysteries of the guitar world, I think. People have done some absolutely outstanding stuff with it, but the vast majority of people, and I've played with one, and I absolutely hated it.
I had the rack unit, the 500X, was it?
Oh,
I can't remember the name of it. The Pod HD.
The
Pro
HD ones
X.
were better. Yeah, the HD ones were better.
It was slightly better, and then I upgraded to the Helix. I was like, I don't need this. I don't want this anymore. There's no need for this.
But yeah, so I managed to sell all of that, thankfully. And then I just went all in on Axe Effects. I just wanted to have everything in one little box that I could wheel around wherever I wanted it to do. I've wheeled this thing on the tube to London, and it worked.
Imagine trying to do that with your previous gear.
No. Unless I've got Superman or Iron Man or Captain Marvel or someone like that to help me out, it's just not happening. But
also,
yeah, that's
someone in chat has just said that they still use a Line 6 Pod 2.
Whoa!
Oh, that's
ancient. I gave away my GT8 actually because obviously I do the class teacher thing, but I've also got a few guitar students who I do one-to-one lessons with, and I gave away my GT8 to one of them because they're leaving the school. I had great fun teaching them. They came so far with their learning with me. It was just such a like one of my proteges kind of thing. I was like, just take this, you deserve it.
I used to have
so good.
The first like multi effects pedal I bought was an Boss ME70.
Oh yeah, that's kind of the smaller GT8. I think it did the same thing.
I think our bassist, I think Chris, our bassist, uses it for bass. It's a fantastic piece of gear. Like it holds up in a lot of places still. It's just something I didn't quite. No, the reason I sold it is because I bought a Black Star Series 1 head and cab. I was like, I'm going to go for pedals because pedals are cool and digital is boring and awful. I'm going to go with what everyone else says. And so it's not true. It's just isn't.
That there is another big thing because I went from the all tube setup with the boogie amps to the complete opposite.
Oh yeah.
That power amp in the bottom is a solid state power amp, but it's fine tuned to work side by side with stuff like Kempers and Axe Effects and Line 6s.
Yeah, because it uses tubes, doesn't it?
No, this thing is solid state, no tubes. So maintaining it is easy peasy, nothing glass to break. Just put the front cover on and off you go. But yeah, that's that. In terms of what I actually do with it, because again, being Petrucci fanboy, I do kind of mimic it a bit, but I put my own twist on it. Here we go. So this is what we use on the computer to kind of set it up and program it and do all that fancy magical wizardry.
It doesn't actually look that different to the actual Helix setup, to be perfectly honest with you.
I suspect they kind of work in the same way, but I came from, what was it, the TC Electronics G Major and G Force, and they just ran straight across the page like that. You had one row and it just went straight across.
Oof.
I think there was an option somewhere in there where you could say that, where you could set certain blocks up to be series and parallel and all that sort of stuff. But the flexibility just was not there. You had to do what it wanted to do, whereas this is just absolutely nuts. So I started with the Axe-Fx Ultra when I was playing with the Boogie amps.
Okay.
And essentially the bottom half of my window was that, where you had the return, you had a volume pedal, a stereo chorus running parallel, the delays there. I'll talk about them more in a minute. And then that went out the other end. But now that I'm doing my whole rig through this thing, I have to get through the first half. So input 1 does what it says on the tin. It lets your guitar into the whole thing. Wah pedal, it's on the floor. I can't really get it up because it's too heavy with the whole board. But the idea of this, which I absolutely fell in love with when I first discovered it, there's no switch on the wah pedal. You literally just start rocking your foot and then it turns it on. There's nothing, like you might be able to see it on the screen.
Yeah.
I'm not pressing any switches. I'm just putting my foot on the pedal. Bang, it's on. It automatically turns itself on and off, provided that the pedal is moving or not, which point it turns it off. So you don't have that annoying, oh God, have I turned it off? I don't remember if I've turned it off. Because I've gone through a few Neanderthal songs where I've forgotten to turn the wah pedal off or not turned it off by accident.
I think I was at one of them.
The song. I get to the end of the song, it's like, oh, that didn't sound very good.
I recall going to one of the Neanderthal gigs, and I think I was like, his guitar's sounding really thin suddenly. What happened?
Yeah, left the wah pedal on. Easy mistake on those, but with this, not a problem because it just turns itself on and off. Overdrive pedal, that's mimicking the Tube Screamer, the 808.
Standard.
Compressor, just because clean sounds like compressors. I have a chorus on the front. That's quite mild. I usually use that with an overdrive sound just to kind of fatten it out a bit, but it doesn't. If you A/B it, you'll hear very little difference. Phaser does the phaser thing. It's mostly for clean sounds. Sometimes chuck it on for electric sounds. There would be a flanger there, but I've been struggling to get my head around the settings of the flanger on the Axe-Fx. So I've currently got a pedal sitting over there somewhere, which when I recorded The Dark Tower, there's a few flanger bits on there. I preferred the pedal sound for that, so I just went with that. But at some point, I'm going to have to do my homework and program it properly. Amplifier, this is where the magic kicks in, because most of these things, actually, they have channels on them. So essentially, I've got a 4-channel amplifier where I've got 4 different settings. And you can run...
Is that meant to be a dual rectifier?
That particular one is the Petrucci Signature, because Petrucci fanboy. Based off the Mark II C+. But in terms of amp models, I mean, it is ridiculous what you can do. It's absolutely insane what you can do. But the idea is that you can have one of those assigned to each of the channels. So channel A could be a Fender Twin Verb. Channel B could be a Marshall Plexi. Channel C could be a Recto. Channel D could be a Bogner. It's totally flexible. And then you've got settings, absolutely nuts settings. The authentic ones, they mimic the actual amp face. So I typically limit it to that. You've got the traditional Mark series curve on the output EQ. But if you wanted to go and do absolutely nitty gritty, minute things, you can do all sorts. Change the caps inside it, change the depths. I don't even know what half this stuff is, but for people who like delving in and tweaking, there's all sorts to play with.
So with these speakers, so I'm guessing those are like custom IRs specifically for the Axe-Fx.
It varies. My one, well, when I did the album, I used User 2 number 6, where I took a particular Petrucci kind of tone, tweaked it, EQ'd it a bit, and then saved that as an impulse response. Playing around with it lately, I've been dabbling around and experimenting with, well, can I mix IRs together so I can get the best of this particular tone, but then also get the high end of that tone? And I'm Still playing around with it, but my current favorite at the moment is blending. This is a legacy one, so this would have come from the Axe-Fx 2. They're all in there. So you got all
It's
your
a
legacy.
412V30.
Yeah.
Does it actually say what cab that is meant to be from, or
That Petrucci one would be from a Recto cab.
okay?
I mean, they have to be a bit careful with the names, because if they tread on trademark names, it's obviously a lawsuit waiting to happen.
But
So
they like you
they
have that
tweak
with
and
all of
change
them.
it. Oh yeah, they tweak and change as necessary. But yeah, that's where I'm at the moment. Legacy comes from Axe-Fx 2, Axe-Fx 1, Ultras and Standards. But then you've also got the factory ones, which are made for the Axe-Fx 3. But you're absolutely spoilt for choice. It is absolutely nuts what you can do with it.
There's a plugin that I've been using which you might find interesting. It's called I think it's called the Libra or Libre. So you can mix.
Heard of it?
You can mix up to 8 IRs together, but you can change completely. So when you get it, you get a bunch of IRs from Bogran. So
Right.
like he's a producer. He's worked with like Sepultura, Devon Townsend, so Behemoth. So like his list is ridiculous. It's massive, and you can change the resonance on certain amps and so forth. So what I would do is I would find that a setting that I really like that is put on there, like, oh, this is the modern one I'm using. Oh, that's really cool. And so I have like own hammer IRs, which most people tend to recommend. So like, okay, I got that. I'm like, oh, it's not got quite the oomph that I want, like the vroom sort of thing that you want sometimes. But then when you add more essence to it, it's like, wow, that is really like all that extra bass that you'd really want in like a modern like speaker cab. It's really interesting what you could do with it, but you can go overkill. I did once chuck in like 8 different cabs and mics. Things like, oh, this is really muddy. Actually, this isn't good.
It's going to sound totally ironic coming from a prog snob, but sometimes less is more.
Yeah, that's definitely what I learned from that. Like with distortion, like that's something I'm sure you learned when you started recording in comparison to when you're playing, because like, oh yeah, I have my gain at 10, but then later on you're recording like, oh, it doesn't sound that good. Why doesn't it sound so good? Then people tell you, oh, you need to put the gain. I was like, that can't be right. So you do it. Like,
yeah,
actually,
I
does.
definitely found that actually with the Depths of Solitude and the Dark Tower. The JP100s back there, the ones with the burst finishes, I basically turned them into fake baritones. They're baritone tuning, but they're not baritone length. So it's just super thick strings tuned down below B. But for those, because of the pickups and the nature of the strings that I used, they were running ridiculously hot.
Oh yeah.
And the gain settings that I was using for the other guitars were just complete overkill for those. And I had to back it down. I think the gain setting when I recorded was about 7 out of 10 for the Majesties, and I had to back the hundreds down to 4 out of 10 to make them do what I wanted them to do without breaking up. So yeah,
I completely get you. That I've recently changed when we recorded one of the EPs. I think I've had the gain at about 7, 8. It sounds fine. It sounds great for what we're doing on that particular record, so it's all right. But I've chucked it down to 4, 5,
yeah.
And I'm like, this actually sounds much better. I'm not getting as much noise as I thought.
And
it's
less is more sometimes.
It's interesting what you can do with that and what you can learn, especially nowadays as well. That, like, thinking about it 30 years ago, you wouldn't have really had the chance to experiment like that. Because you'd go to a studio and like, oh, why does it sound good? I don't know. I do not understand.
And then with these sorts of things, I mean, I've been playing around lately with reamping. That's something. I mean, reamping is an old technique. It's been around for years. But again, with the improvements in technology, it's super easy with the Axe-Fx. You just tweak one setting on there, and your input changes from an analog cable to a virtual one coming from Pro Tools or Logic or whatever you use. So it's nuts what you can do with this stuff.
Reamping is life-saving, though, really, when you get down to it, because
yeah,
I
think
am
anything I do from now on is going to have reamping as an option.
like, it's just what happens is you'll write something like, oh, this tone isn't quite right, and like, oh, I've lost it now. But when you take down the DI, it's like, doesn't matter because I could do all of that.
Oh, it's magic. But that top half is essentially the equivalent of the like the pedal drawer, the amp head. That was that. It then goes into a volume pedal. Just you know, volume is volume. Just turn it off. I then like on the post amp effects to go parallel. The idea here is that you get the tone running straight through the middle, but it's completely untouched. So you get that purity and clarity from the pre part of the amp path that maintains all the way through right until it hits the output. But then the idea is that with the chorus running stereo, it'll appear in either headphone whilst you've got that clarity running straight down the middle.
So it's more like a background effect rather than an immediate one.
Exactly. Whereas the chorus up here completely colors the tone and shifts it and morphs it and swells it and does all of that. This keeps that clarity all the way through, but kind of pans it side by side. So you blend it. The tricky bit of doing this is the blending. You need to get the right levels. For both of these, you want the mix on 100%, because that way you get all of the chorus effect and all of the delay effect. But then you just want to back down on the level to the point where you think, right, that's enough chorus blended in with my original tone, and that's enough delay blended in there. But some people like that, some people don't. It's what works for you.
Personal choice.
The chorus sound, it varies. I use all 4 channels actually, depending on what I'm doing. So the crunch sound has one, the lead sound has one, the clean sound has a totally different one, just so it can stand out and shimmer. Delays, 2 of them are for clean, 2 of them are for drive. They're EQ'd slightly differently, so you cut different frequencies at either end to stop it from becoming muddy or to clean up the top end a bit. But delays definitely make the biggest difference in instrumental music.
Oh yeah.
Similar to how you would record vocals with a sizable amount of reverb and delay, you have to do it for lead guitars and solos. Some people don't like doing it, but if you're doing an instrumental record, I'd say it's essential. But you've got a mix there. I like the stereo thing, so it ping pongs from either side. One's doing one speed, one's doing slightly different speed, so it bounces between the 2 speakers. There's another one here. I love playing around with this. This is that swelling effect.
Oh yeah.
It sounds kind of like a violin. The magic here is that it relies on the volume pedal. So you start with the volume pedal all the way off. You pick the string, and as you push down on the volume pedal, you miss that initial attack. So you miss the harsh pick, but you still got that tone coming through.
That
and that's
beautiful
where you get the
swell that you get.
That's the one. You'll hear it best on track 9, but it also pops in on track 4. So Ethereal Skies does it best. Depths of Solitude does it. Awakening does it as well, actually, only for a little bit. Oh, and so I did it a lot more than I thought. It does it on Falling from Heaven as well. There's a couple of bits that do it on there. But then there's a reverb on it because you want it to be big and spacey. You want kind of the whole sound field bouncing and echoing around to give it that feel. And then the delay is just set really high. There's loads of feedback. The level's quite high because you want to hear more of that than the original signal. And then the same again with the reverb. That's quite high to make sure it drowns out the original signal a bit. That then goes into an enhancer. So when I'm playing live, it mimics me. So there's 2 of me, one in either speaker, playing ever so slightly different times apart. It's the old-fashioned delay trick where you stick a 0.7 millisecond delay on to pretend there's 2 of you.
There's a second, yeah. So it thickens up more because when you just copy and paste it, so that's why you double track 2 different takes, because that will fill out the spectrum more and it'll feel, it sounds generally just better. You can just copy and paste one track to the next, but it doesn't have the same kind of effect.
No. It's definitely all about space. It just makes it sound like a wall of sound. And it just, you don't even need a guitar to do it. If you think vocal recordings, choirs, when you have one person singing into a microphone without any effects on it, it's kind of like what we're doing now.
Yeah.
If I had my, I'm running into a Focusrite at the moment for my microphone, but that's got stereo inputs. You can then kind of move yourself around. You can put a second person in there, a third person in there, and all of a sudden it just explodes and becomes a wall of sound. And that's why choirs end up sounding the way they do, because it's just such a big wall of sound.
It's that sweet point of the correct pitch and timing, which supports itself and just it just generally makes it sound better. While if you say you're too much out of time or so on and so forth, like I'm sure you've had that with tremolo picking guitars.
Yes.
Like when you're slightly out with them, it just like it's like no,
it just turns a little bit into mush.
It's almost like
right.
like floppy feet. Like that's what I can think of. Just like yeah, that's bad tremolo picking right there.
That there. The last part of the chain very, very rarely gets used. Again, it's a live thing. But when I last saw Dream Theater on tour, they've managed to set their rigs up so that they can essentially cut out half of the feed. So if you've got your left and right speaker, they've figured out a way to cut the right speaker out so that if there's a guitar part and you just want to hear, like we were saying with the double takes, you just want to hear the one side. And they do that on songs on albums where it'll be, there's a guitar there playing, keyboard will then come in, but then you want the whole band and you just want it to explode. You then get both double takes coming out. Because I'm using the enhancer, I'm double taking already. But by sticking that extra pan block in, when I turn that on, it completely drowns out and removes the right speaker. So I can pretend that I'm playing with one of me. I then jump to the next patch and then bang in your face, there's two of me. Again, it's a live thing, but I wonder
if you could set it in such a manner that you could assign it to a floor pedal, just like a wah pedal, so that if you, on the tip, you've only got the right speaker, and if you got it on the heel, you're on the left speaker.
I believe you can, because if we look there where it says balance, is on 100.
Yeah, you must be able to assign that in some capacity.
There you go. So if I do, I don't know which one's which. That one. If I got the right one, I do the other one. Yeah, there we go. So I can change. Oh no, I've pressed something.
Well, hey.
There we go. I'm on my volume pedal at the moment, but I can change the panning of the sound just by rocking the pedal back and forth. Ooh. That's what the little graph is doing. If I jump out the graph, there you go. You see the balance is changing with the volume pedal. No hands. La, 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 la. Yeah.
As a general question, out of pure curiosity to myself at this point, so how do you generally do that live? Because I generally found that when I bring the Helix to gigs, engineers tend to get a bit confused with it, or they just don't generally like they just don't like it being there.
I mean, remember my old rig? Remember me turning up with that thing with two 2x12 cabs and going, right, I want that, I want that, I want them panned there and there. And then actually looking back on the screen, I've got input 3, the piezo pickups go in there. So I then come along and say, well, I want that mic there, I want that mic there, I want my piezo running down the middle. I must have been the most hated guitar player of Chinnery's for years.
Yeah, no, because I used to use the Helix for vocal parts, but then for some reason it just wouldn't work. Like, this works everywhere else, just not at certain gigs. So like, I'm not going to bother using it anymore. But no, that because Luke, our guitarist, also uses the Helix, so we can send presets to each other, and we're like, that's a preset I'm using. It's really interesting because he used a completely different IR and a different amp because he's using a Mesa. I either get a really good tone or a really bad one. Like, I can't quite figure out how to get the Mesa to sound how I want to, while Luke has. So instead, I've gone and stropped off and decided to use a Rev instead.
Yeah.
And for ages, we both kept on butting heads. Like, what tone do we want to use for this? Like, I want to use this. Like, no, we use this. It's like just not general bickering. Just like, no, I like this. No, I like that. And in the end, I'm like, oh, I really like what I've done with Driver. I'm going to send that to Luke. And Luke's like, oh, I'm going to send you what I've done with the Mace. I really like it. Couldn't get his original IR, so I stuck my one on. I'm like, they're actually really similar. They're completely different amps. Like, I've gone really simple, and he's gone Star Trek. Like, he's like got everything in one setting. Me, I will have it onto like 3 different profiles, or whatever. He sends it to me like, this is actually eerily similar. Like, mine has slightly more bass, and his is a bit more mid. But this is actually really close. How did you manage to do it? Because we're using different. We're also using different distortion pedals as well. I'm using traditional a tube screamer, general, like no drive, max a tone and a volume, sorted. He is using the Horizon Precision one, which they've added in the latest patch. Now, I used it before, but then I realised it's not quite for me. Now he's using it like, there's I don't like this. You've been watching me. You've been watching without me looking.
I don't remember watching the whole thing, but somewhere on YouTube there is a video basically explaining and demonstrating that you can set any high gain guitar amp to sound exactly the same. It is possible to get a Boogie Recto to sound like a Diesel or a EVH or something. Apparently it can be done with enough tweaking.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, you're not going to get a Fender Clean channel to sound like a Mark IV with an overdrive pedal on it. That's not going to happen.
Oh, no.
But if we're talking in the same ballpark of high gain amps, then yeah, you can make high gain amps sound the same.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. It's just simply we've gone completely different places. That's very odd. I don't like, because the other thing is as well is he used because his guitar uses EMGs. Mine uses the Solar passive pickups. So they're completely different instruments, but still sound very similar. So I found it was extremely interesting to see what results both of us got.
That is the magic of guitars and amps and the holy quest of tone chasing, because there's no right or wrong way to do it. The results you get are very much a case of what you've got and who you're with and all sorts of stuff.
Exactly. I mean, you've got someone like Tom Morello. His gear is what most would probably call subpar / amateurish, but it works so well with what he does. He's even, I think, Rage Against the Machine did do a gig somewhere in like South America where they're like, okay, here you go, Tom. This is like thousands of dollars worth of amps and stuff. He plays it. I hate it. So he went down to like a local music shop and just got like cheapest guitars, cheapest amps, so on and so forth, and it sounded right. So, wow, okay.
It's what works best for you and your ears.
Exactly.
It's like we were saying earlier. It's totally subjective. Different people like different things, but that's what works for me. And the fact that I can wheel it around, I can take it to school to do my lessons. I've taken it on the tube. I don't think I'd do it again because it was a little tricky. But for me personally, this works like an absolute dream. Everything I need in one box.
It just makes life so much easier, especially with the fact that you can press one button. Oh, I've got 6 effects up. Well, if you actually used pedals, that'd be a nightmare.
The tap dance. The pedal tap dance. Yeah.
There's far too many people that I see that have like just enterprise style, like just an enterprise style pedal board.
Whereas, this is what I'm on now. So this is the thing that ties into the Fractal. It's their actual Axe FX3 pedal board. But the thing that makes it unique, and I had a regular MIDI board before this one, and it did the job. I pressed that button, I got a clean sound. I pressed that button, I got a crunch sound. I pressed that button, I got a lead sound. It did what it said on the tin. But the magic of this thing is that you're actually not limited to the 12 buttons that you've got there. If I press that button, it's now the tap dancing game. You can't really see because of the lights, but that one is phaser. That one is chorus 2. That one's chorus 1. That one's drive. So if I want to do the tap dancing game, I press the top right button and there's the tap dancing game.
I can also see the extra lights that you fitted onto the board recently.
Oh, yes. I like these a lot. Ooh, and then just being the complete nerd that I am, made a cable with XLR and MIDI running through it at the same time. So the USB powers the LED lights, and the MIDI cable, the XLR cable carries the FC12 signal back to the Axe-Fx. Love it. Then if I hold down that button, I think it was that one. Yeah, I then access presets. So if I want a Neanderthal patch, I press one button, bang, I've got that. That there is Alex bass tone that we've been recording with. That one is the patch that I'm mucking about with at the moment. What's this one? I think that's a factory one. Yeah, that's a
Mr. Z38.
Mr. Z38. Yeah, it's not 12 buttons. It's as many buttons as you want it to be.
It just makes life so much easier, really.
Yeah.
So have you ever thought about just having like ridiculous naming conventions? Like earlier on, I saw, before we started the interview, I saw like Ola using I think he's using an Axe-Fx as well now, or a Helix, something like that. And he just created a patch just called "I'm in the band." Yes, this is great. This is gold.
I haven't got to that stage of insanity yet, but give it a few more years and you never know, it might happen.
To be fair, then you've got Ola, who goes through so much gear on a weekly basis. Oh man,
the man is nuts. Kudos to him. He's done a tremendous job. And thinking about what we were saying earlier with making it in the music industry, although most of what he does is not kind of, playing in a band or whatever, look at the following he's got.
He's actually been invited to play for bands just because of the gear stuff they did, like The Haunted. Yeah, The Haunted aren't a band. They're not his band. He's a band that he's in. And they asked him once, like, "Oh, do you just want to play in the band?" And because he could play it, I think he played Dimefest as well, and just things like that. The one problem that I found was quite interesting from an interview that I watched with him and Petrucci, saying that I've got your attention now, is because both of them have such a large discography to go through. They don't remember all the songs that they've played and learned. So Petrucci, I think he's said that a few times in interviews, where what'll happen is they'll say, "Oh, we're going to do the anniversary of this record," and he'll just be ripping his hair out. I was like, "Oh God, how did I play this? Oh no!"
Yeah.
It's like, how did I play it? I think he will actually ask his wife from time to time, because I think she's quite an avid guitarist as well.
She is. Not to be, I'm going to come across as a massive fanboy nerd again, but they played together at a Sega Awards ceremony. And they're just jamming with each other on stage. A pair of them, both playing his signature guitars, obviously. But no, she can keep up with him.
And it's really cool, because like, imagine, right? You just walk into your living room, you see your other half just trying to go through, like, "Oh, I'm not getting this lick right. This is what you're doing wrong. This is what I do.
Yeah.
So you might try that," and so on and so forth. But then again, there's also, it's a double-edged sword, because if your partner is also a musician and you both do the same thing, it's very easy to step on each other's toes.
Yes.
Which Fleetwood Mac. What? Fleetwood Mac. No, there's it's a double-edged sword. It works for some people, it doesn't work for others. It's just a simple fact.
Yeah.
Depends on many things.
It's quite a lot of what we've said already earlier with gear and tastes and making things work. It is very much just us as individuals, and that's kind of what makes music special, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's it comes from the heart. It comes from the soul. It's what makes everyone unique. and particularly as musicians, although we can all play a G chord and we can all do a G, D, C chord passage.
What are these chords you speak of? I only play metal. I play shreddy shreddy.
What? Where's your G major 7 with an added 6? Come on. I'm making that up. It's probably not even a real chord.
I'm sure there is. I'm sure there is. I'm sure Tobin Abasi will just smash through.
It'll probably exist somewhere in some.
He's probably created it.
Yeah.
Like when you buy an Abasi guitar, you just have a list of all these chords that have never existed before. He'll create a chord specifically to you each time you're on an Abasi.
I love looking at new guitars. I've taken a real interest in Kiesel guitars lately. I absolutely love what you can do with them. But the Tosin guitar, I just don't get the Tosin guitars.
They're more of a wall ornament more than anything. Like aesthetically, it's like, okay, if you have like a really cool hip, like jazz, like house or flat, like just that kind of aesthetic.
Yeah,
it's great for that. Like if you like Prince,
I absolutely love what he can do on a guitar. It's absolutely insane. He's tremendous,
and he's so charismatic.
I just don't get the guitar itself. It's a bit alien to me.
I'd love to try
from me. That's coming from me. Oh yeah, that's the thing. I'd love to try one day.
Like you look at the music, like you look at the Music Men, and you can see, okay, it's ergonomical. It makes sense the way it's shaped. It's like a strap. It's almost like a strap, but smaller. And you can see that the neck is, this is no showboating. It's just, how can I get maximum play? Like one thing that I've changed since lockdown, like I've been improving my guitar playing a lot more because I want to play guitar live and sing. But predominantly anyway. But one of the biggest changes that I've done personally is I started using the Matt Heafy Jazz 3 plectrums with the max grip. And at first, I thought they felt really weird because I bought 3 sets of plectrums. I bought the John Petrucci ones and the White Fang James Hetfield ones and the Heafy ones. I liked the Hetfield ones at first when I'm going through them like nothing. The Petrucci ones slipped too much. Then I started using the Matt Heafy ones with the max grip, and it's like, they work so well. Yeah, it's the ones that you have on the left hand with the shiny tip. Those are the ones I have. I've tried them, but they're slightly too big. I find them ever so slightly too large.
These 3 are the Petrucci ones. These are the 3, and I think I'm trying to remember. These ones came along first, and I never liked them from the get-go. I tried them, and they were too big. They were too clunky, like you said, too slippy. Wasn't a fan. These came along, and I think they're kind of like the Heafy ones. They've got a real good grip to them, but they were just too thick for me. I really didn't like them. They were too chunky. These came along, and I really liked them. I did the album with them. They're basically the old Jazz 3s, the little ones.
Yeah.
Kind of 3 of them together. They're roughly the same shape and size, but you can rotate. Oh, no, wrong one. You can rotate that one round. So you got one there, one there, one there. I tried that. I liked them, but playing around lately, I've just gone back to the Jazz 3s.
Yeah, because
just, for me, and I've got fairly little hands for a 30-something-year-old. For me, they're just spot on.
Because, like, personally, like, again, I'm not a great guitarist. Like, you're far better guitarist than I am. And so I've had to reset the way that I play. Because I started doing Rocksmith streams, so people would be like, we want you to play this song and do so and so. Like, I'm not going to play it perfectly. Most of the songs I've never heard of before. So I'll play, I'm like, my plectrum's like slipping and I'm getting the positioning wrong and so forth. So I'm doing it. I'm like, okay,
that's
what am I doing wrong?
That's a funny story, actually. Possibly the craziest musical thing I've ever done. I don't know if you know him. There's a guy called Ashton Moore.
I recognise the name. I
can't
place it. I can't place for some reason.
Ashton is an absolutely astoundingly talented and creative individual who lives in Southend. He works in schools doing music stuff. I can't remember which school he's at the moment, but I first got to know him through a musical that he wrote called Samson. And I was very, very fortunate to get in touch with him at the right time, because he needed a guitarist to help him come up with the guitar parts for his musical. So I was loosely involved in the writing process of that musical. That's how I got to know him. But the funny story is that I woke up one Saturday morning a few years back to a phone call from him, just completely out of the blue. And it's, obviously slightly tired. And, well, what do you want at this time in the morning? That sort of thing. And it was, he was at the Palace Theatre that day, and he was putting on, I think it was part of a series of shows, but it's kind of music. What was it? A film night music thing. Basically, the idea is it was loads of bits of music from various films, just as a little concert being played at the Palace Theatre. And he said, well, my guitarist has bailed and I don't have a guitarist for the day. Can you learn about 12 songs and then play them tonight? Somehow I got through it and played those songs, half learned them, half sight read them, with a mix of electric and acoustic. That was by far and away the craziest musical thing I've ever done, is get a phone call in the morning, played at the Palace Theatre that very evening, having about 6 hours to learn the material. I've never done anything that crazy before.
And I bet you don't remember any of that anymore.
Well, the only one I remember is Eye of the Tiger, because anyone can play Eye of the Tiger. Yeah. Anyone can play that. There was a Disney one. What was it? From Moana. That was one of the songs. There was a Blues Brothers song. I can't remember the others. Far too long ago. But to pick up and play like that was a massive challenge. Never done anything like that before.
That's absolutely crazy. Like, well done on getting through it and actually being successfully as well.
Definitely not the best I've played, but with
considering how with 6 hours, that's like no time at all.
No, I got through it somehow.
Oof, that is crazy. That's absolutely mad.
Yeah, sorry, I interrupted your story with my own craziness.
No, that's fine. I don't remember what my story was, but actually, Kiesel Guitars. Funnily enough, with I was saying about Rocksmith. Kiesel Guitars. There's I think he's like the biggest Rocksmith player at the moment, and he just like he'll go through a really difficult part of a song, like he'll shred through it, and he'll still talk to the entire chat. He's still reading through the chat, and how did he do it? I think he approached Kiesel Guitars because of Herman Lee, because Herman Lee's quite big on Twitch, and Herman's like, "Oh, you're really good. Blah, blah, blah. Why don't you contact Kiesel?" Like, I don't think I have any weight to throw around. He's like, "No, go ahead. Like, you've got plenty to offer." So it does, and every now and again they'll send him like these crazy guitars. I think he got one I think it's a custom specifically for him. It's like pink with glitter on it, and it just looks amazing. Like it looks like a fish tank.
That's the magic of the Kiesel guitars. And if the universe aligns and I somehow need to go and do a world tour of Lost and Found, I wouldn't be able to play some of the songs on that album confidently live. The Dark Tower and the Depths of Solitude, with that fake baritone thing, recording them was a case of, well, the strings are just far too big for this guitar. They're not staying in tune. So recording it was an absolute nightmare. So if I were to play those songs live, I would need an extended range guitar. I would need like a baritone kind of thing. And Kiesel offers that alongside all the 7s and the 8s and the 6s, but you can customize them. You start with the base model, but then you choose the finish, you choose the wood, you choose the electronics. It is a custom shop. And it's a fair priced custom shop as well. To essentially recreate one of the ones behind me in their custom shop, about £2,000. I don't know how tax would affect that.
Yeah.
But just as a base price of £2,000 for a guitar that you have essentially designed minus the base shape, that's incredible. If we think
is actually really
Gibson
cool.
and Fender prices are probably nearing that nowadays, I would happily pay $2,000 to have a guitar that I have more or less designed.
But then there's another guitar company that I always like to throw into the mix when it comes to Kiesel. You've got Comparison Guitars.
Yeah. Oh, it's been a while.
They're-
What's his called? What's his name? Symphony X guitarist Michael Romeo.
Yes, he used them,
He has
but
one.
I found out. So there's two other people that I've found out recently. Well, there's one of them that I found out recently uses them. The original guitarist of Venom, he uses them, and I always forget his last name. Matthias from Free Kitchen.
I don't know that one.
Check it. I generally think that's a band that you might like. They have quite not simple songs, but quite melodic, like quite cool melodic songs. And then he'll go into a solo that you think, oh, it's really weird what he's doing, and it goes into like this is actually really cool. And the guitar he had, like they're all like endorsed by Comparison. But Matthias, his Comparison that he has is insane. It's an 8-string guitar, and it has a whammy bar.
Oh, I didn't even know that was possible.
Neither did I. And like, I think he tells this story on one of Ola's things because he's like from Sweden, and Ola's like, oh yeah, he's like a hero. Yeah. He's like incredible. I know I talk about Ola all the time. It could be worse. It could be a Mike Portnoy fan, and this entire interview would just be. Have you heard about Mike Portnoy? Let me tell you about Mike
Winery
Portnoy.
Dogs, Transatlantic, Sons of Apollo, everyone else that he's done.
Avenged Sevenfold, Twisted Sister. Yeah, could just go on and on. Really, he's really gone through the ranks over the last few years. It's insane. But I think he was saying how Matthias was saying how so he just says a joke. Said, "Oh, what if you get me like an 8-string guitar with a whammy bar?" And like, okay, we'll get it done. Like, don't you worry about any of that. It's like, I think it's like it's a Japanese company, and I think him and Devin Townsend. I think Devin mentions in an interview that he would never be able to afford any of the guitars that he plays if he wasn't endorsed by these companies. Because like he even asked someone once, like, what would the price be for one of my guitars if I wanted to buy it retail? And this is how much we like. No. But it's quite funny because he's even mentioned how once he just asked for like a normal guitar, they're like, oh, so it's not like a really crazy design that you've come up with at all. So, and they were really disappointed they didn't have a really weird, crazy design. Because I think their guitars, the guitars that Devin plays are like $8,000 a piece or something.
They are a very pretty penny. They are, but they're nice. They are really nice guitars.
Like no one else is going to have a guitar like that.
No.
But then you've got someone like, oh, I've got Gibson. Yes, everyone's got a Les Paul in some capacity.
Yeah.
But you're paying for exclusivity, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Gibson are an interesting company at the moment. They've recently got their hands on Mesa Boogie, actually.
Oh, they did, didn't they? And loads of people are like, oh, they're going to be awful because Gibson.
That has caused an uproar. A tremendous uproar.
I'm interested of what that will do exactly. Like, I do hope that they're not going to have the same quality issues as Gibsons have had for a good number of years. Like they're aware of it, so I'm not really bashing them down in any capacity. It's legit a case of that's what's happened, and now they're run by Negan from The Walking Dead.
I think the legacy that Boogie has with the players and the iconic status of some of their amps, they can't get them wrong. For someone to mess up a Recto is it's unthinkable. You can't really mess it up, and provided that Boogie sticks to their philosophy and what they've done for the last however many years, then they should be fine. It's then going to come down to management, I suppose. But in terms of the products that we, the users, will have, we shouldn't have a problem.
No. I mean, what? Yeah, I mean, if they sort of do, I mean, everyone's worried when anyone does like a House of Mouse sort of acquisition like that. Like, oh, they're going to ruin it. Oh, they're going to ruin Star Wars. Gibson's going to ruin Star Wars.
That is a conversation for another day, I'm afraid.
Oh yeah, of course. No, we've gone far down the rabbit hole. But yeah, people now, rightfully so, people are worried because these are things that people like. These are things that people love, and they don't see the necessity of this needs to change. It doesn't necessarily need to change. No. I agree with that to within reason, of course. But it could bring some interesting things. Like, I'm never 100% against any acquisition like that. Like with I'm going back to House of Mouse when they acquired Fox, because everyone's like, oh no, you're not going to have Always Sunny in Philadelphia or South Park anymore. They're just going to get rid of those completely because they always target them. But then it's like, yeah, but they got X-Men back. You can have X-Men in Marvel movies again. You can have mutants. You don't have to do like a weird, like, they're like an experimental thing. Scarlet Witch is not an experimental thing. She is a mutant. This is, no, what have you done here? Joss Whedon, why? Why, Joss?
And I don't know if you're into the show, but WandaVision, have you been keeping up with that?
I've not watched yet. Like Disney Plus, I am sponging off of my father-in-law, or to be father-in-law, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always careful to not overuse it, because I think you only get like one person has access to it at one time. So like, okay, I don't want to use it when it's like this. So what I'll do is I'll binge something.
Yeah,
I've been binging Clone Wars and Mandalorian. Like, Clone Wars is just, it's animated, but there's so much lore that they're packing into it. It's ridiculous. But sorry, I'm digressing.
I really enjoyed The Mandalorian, actually. I put it off for ages and then eventually got around to it. I think it was last month, actually. Yeah, last month I got around to it. Binged the whole lot, and superb.
That really, ending really in the second season. Oh my
just
God.
Just in case anyone's not seen it. But yeah,
I won't spoil it. I'm always very careful with spoilers.
Yeah, that was magnificent. But on the note of WandaVision, if you take that ending, I mean, we're only 5 or 6 episodes into WandaVision at the moment, and we've had a few of those moments already. So it's, if you're into the Avengers and Marvel and all that sort of stuff, highly recommend it. It's kind of my Friday treat at the moment when that new episode comes out. Because something changes every episode. You think you know where it's going, and then okay.
But that's what I'm finding really interesting with a lot of these really big popular properties. So I want to say IPs, but that's I mean, it's right, it's correct, but it's no one speaks like that. I'm not Phil Spencer. Let's stop right there.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Like you have things like, like the Marvel TV shows now and the Star Wars TV shows. And I think as a general consensus, they're generally better than the films. Because there's just, not necessarily better, there's more, it's fleshed out more. There's not that constraint of this needs to be 2 to 3 hours long. This is like, exactly. Okay, we've got 10 episodes of this. This is how much it'll be done. Like with, what's it called? The Justice League movie, the Snyder Cut that they're doing now. Like, I like DC and Marvel. Like, I'm a big fan of both for their own reasons. But with Snyder Cut, I'm more than happy to give it a chance simply because, well, the movie's now 5 hours long. I'm more than happy to see what's happened there.
Yeah. I need to give that one a go, actually. I never watched the original, so I don't quite understand what the fuss about it is.
I think people are... I think people who like comic books are very easily upset about things like, this isn't correct, or that's not right. Like Titans, I love Titans. I know a lot of people don't like it, but I like how realistic it is, while still being grounded enough in a certain degree. Like, I didn't quite... Like, I like the Titanverse side of things, because you've got two different DC universes now, don't you? TV ones, like... You have the Flash and the Arrowverse. That's it. And I couldn't never quite get into that because I'm like, it's Batman, but as Green Arrow. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
But that's just me being nerdy. I love comics. So the other half's just come back. You just have to take them as their own thing. I love comics. I hate them. Some of the changes, but then I have to just accept things like Gotham is its own universe and enjoy it for its own thing. Gotham is an interesting one. I think it went on for too long, personally.
I've been told by someone at work that I need to watch it, and I haven't got round to it.
It's good. I wouldn't say it's terrible. I think because I watched it from the start, from like season 2, I think there's like 4 or 5 seasons. I think there were like I left like big gaps, so I'm like, oh, I'm just jumping into season 3. I don't understand what's happening anymore, but I'm still going to keep going.
Push through, yeah.
But yeah, or like The Witcher. The Witcher's done so well as a series.
I tried it. I couldn't get into it.
Oh, that's fair enough. Again, like everyone.
I gave it a go.
Yeah, I mean, you gave it a go. You can't knock it like, I haven't watched it. I hate it. It's awful.
Yeah, exactly. No, I tried it. I just could not get into it.
Yeah. Sorry, your partner's just putting a wall of chain.
Oh, no.
Like, no, it's fine. No, it's perfectly fine. It's not a wall. It's like half a wall.
She's very passionate about her DC comics, so I'm not surprised. Well done.
Like comics are great, especially like I like a lot of these sort of like offshoot ones that you get, like the ones that aren't DC and aren't Marvel. They can be quite decent. So I feel like I'm just jumping into territory that's like, yeah, Adam can't add to the discussion here.
No, I'm kind of out of my depth now.
I'll stop going to there. So you've got Final Fantasy 16 coming out fairly soon.
Yeah, not sure how I feel about that one.
They kind of gone backwards, didn't they?
Yeah.
In the sense of like aesthetically, they went backwards to like the 9, I guess. Am I thinking of the right?
You could argue that. I think because I've come from playing them on the PlayStation 1 back in the day, where it's very bright, colourful, happy, and kind of Final Fantasy 9 sort of thing. Yeah, 7 and 8 were a bit more grim, but even the 2D ones before that, they were bright and colourful and vibrant and cheerful and whatever else. But everything we've seen from that 16 trailer so far is very dark, very grim, actually very Western. It feels like it's been completely Westernized. But
yeah,
I'll obviously give it a chance, give it a go. I gave 15 a go. Can't say it was the best gaming experience ever. 14, I've played it for far too long. I was one of the 1.0 players back in the day when
it was really bad, when they had to reset the entire
world. I was there
world.
From day one. No, I saw everything. I saw the worst of it. I saw the recovery. I saw the meteor. I was there at silly o'clock in the morning when the server was literally switched off. And then the trailer was released, and I went back to sleep crying my eyes out over how good the trailer was. And no, I've stayed with it ever since. So it's kind of it's got sentimental value, that one. I played 11, which was the original online one when I was a teenager. Played it far too much. I'll throw my hands up, way too much, but I made tons of friends out of that, so I can't complain.
Because isn't there meant to be on the next update, or if it has already come through, aren't they adding like a Stardew Valley sort of mode onto 14?
That's coming in the next expansion, which is the end of the year. So we've
Endwalker,
only just found out about. Correct. Yes, we've only just found out about it. Endwalker concludes the Shadowbringers story and everything that's come along with that. And it sparked a lot of debate because people were going, "Oh, is this the end of Final Fantasy 14? It's the end of the main story. So is that it? Is there no more content?" But I read today that they've got at least 5 years worth of content left. So doing the maths on it, that's at least 2 more expansions after this as well. So there's plenty to keep it going.
He's showing me 9 at the moment for the first time I've ever seen it. I played it last year for a bit. I think I got fairly far. I don't think I was that. I've definitely got a few hours into the whole VV Village thing.
That actually is where we finished off last time when we played it last week.
I am so glad I didn't go any further with where I got to. I don't want to. It's heart-wrenching.
That was a moment.
And
there's still more to come on that, actually. I won't say anything out loud because Emily needs to see it for herself.
Oh, yeah.
No, that story is not finished.
I like the general story, and I quite like the aesthetic. The only problem I have is just a general character design, small bodies, big heads, just the cheap thing. I'm like, okay, he keeps making really sexually suggestive like points to her, and she's like, she looks like she's 12. I'm really uncomfortable with this entire situation.
Emily likes making that point a lot whenever I show her anything anime or anything like that, and it's the same answer every time. It's Japan.
Yeah.
For Japan, that's the norm. It's just for the Western world, it's alien to us. It's at times slightly uncomfortable for us, but for that part of the world, no, that is the norm.
So, Adam, why are you screaming, and why is your hair turning blonde? Why are you suddenly getting more muscle? What is happening? Japan.
Exactly. And on the flip side of that, where we're saying about the main female hero looking like a 12-year-old, Final Fantasy X has Auron, and for the Western world, if you ask, in fact, I'll put it up on, if you ever quickly chuck it up on the screen.
Oh, and then you get Lulu. Then, like, you just get Lulu. It's like, yeah, we get all the goths to you get all the goths to just start doing cosplay.
Right, let's get his picture up. That's quite a good one. Open a new tab. There we go. So here's the guy in question. Here's our guy. Ballpark figure. How old is he?
30s, 40, like somewhere between 30s and 40s.
30s and 40s. 35. Most people will come along and go, he must be 40 plus or something like that. But that is what Japan's numbers are just different to what we would traditionally think of in the West. Yeah, like you were quite close. You were very close, actually.
Oh, but that's because I played Final Fantasy X as well. So it's probably like a back of my head sort of thing. But
that's a question for anyone in the chat, which we've kind of spoiled already. But yeah.
Oh well. But no, it's interesting, like just the general difference in culture. Because I grew up with a lot of anime. Like I grew up with One Piece, Dragon Ball, others. I can't remember the other ones now. But so to me, like the Japanese culture thing has never been particularly weird. But once I started getting old and started talking to people, like, why do you find that so weird? It's like, oh, because this. But it's not. It's just a different culture. It's like the thing that I always find quite funny is like every anime will have something like, oh, you have like the hot spring episodes, or
hot spring episodes are definitely a thing.
They're definitely a thing. And was it? Oh, we're going to bully this girl because she is quite well endowed in the chest area. Ha ha. I was like, why are you laughing?
Yeah.
What?
The camera angles are a bit of a thing as well.
Oh yeah. No, they did that in Mass Effect as well, which they got rid of now for the new edition.
Yes.
So no more butt shots.
I'm looking forward to playing that. The originals were great.
I'm going to try and play Dragon Age Inquisition when I get a chance again. I downloaded it on the PlayStation again because I played the original about 4 years ago, and even then that aged really poorly. Because like, you've got this particular intimate scene. Like, this looks really weird. Oh God, he's staring right at me. And it's the back of his head. Oh no, this is not how it should be. But I will give it a try again because I think I gave up with Mass Effect 3, and then I played Andromeda, which was we don't talk about that. We don't talk about Andromeda. It would have been so. It could have been so good. It brought in so many good things from Mass Effect 1. And it's like it's not quite as diverse as you guys like to make it out to be. They need to create
that was a bit of a letdown.
They need to create like a cross between Mass Effect and No Man's Sky. If they can get like a hybrid of that, you've got a game for the ages.
Into. Yeah, no, I agree.
You know, promise all these big things to everyone, don't deliver, but then start bringing it in over the next few years.
Absolutely, I agree. I'm just looking at the time. We've been going for over 2 hours.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, we should start wrapping up. My bad.
Yeah. No, that was tremendously fun.
Okay, so before we do finish the stream, are there any messages you want to bring out? Anything you want to announce? Merch, CDs, anything like that? Or
I'd love to announce CDs, but I can't seem to get any printed because, well, lockdown's closed it all. But once February 22nd comes along and Boris does his thing, I'm going to get back on that again and see if I can get some produced because I'd love to do it. I do still have... There aren't many of these left.
There we go.
I do still have a few of these left.
Ooh.
So if anyone would like one of those, I'm happy to ship them out. If you message, how's best to do that?
What's the best way to contact you?
I would probably say my Facebook page, because that is always pinging and throwing things at me.
Which you have to check on your phone because the desktop app doesn't like to do anything.
That is, if I bring it up on my magical screen. Here it comes. That is this little page here. If you search for my name, you'll probably find it, although here we go. It's the @AJL Music Sound. Find that on Facebook. I can then message you with details and things like that. But @AJL Music Sound. It's the best way to get in touch with me.
Amazing. Did I? Okay, sorry. I had the little heart drop for a moment there because, like, did I upload the whole podcast thing onto the band page rather than my personal one? Whoops! About like, no, I just posted something else. Like, okay, that's fine. It's all good. Because I keep thinking I'll do that, but nah, it doesn't happen. So I'm glad. But yes,
I suppose aside from that, final shout out would be, please give my album a listen, obviously, and kind of how.
But where can they listen to the album, Adam?
Pretty much everywhere: Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, all those things. You just search my name and it will pop up. There is a YouTube channel. You can find some bits on there. Again, look up the AJL Music Sound. That's kind of my handle for everything, and you'll find me there. But I can send you a link, which it's one of those Avid distribution ones.
Ah, okay.
It kind of hooks onto all the services and gives you all the links. So if I send you that when we're done, then you can put it up with the podcast whenever or however it goes live.
Wednesday.
Cool. Alrighty then.
All right, sweet. Thanks so much for coming along, dude. And yes, so this episode is presented to you by the Danny Mesmerise podcast, which you can find on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. So you can find a video on YouTube. You can find it on my personal Podbean website, and so on and so forth. So the episode will be out on Wednesday in audio and video format. Again, we had Adam Loveridge. There we go. That's how we ended, just with me.
Thank you, good sir.
Okay, thank you everyone so much and have a great evening.